Hello, it's Liz here. Today I'm going to share with you Stampin' Blends on Vellum. So I don't know if you've played around with Vellum or the Stampin' Blends, but we're going to put them together, and this is the card I'm going to create with you today. So join with me. Here we go. All right, so I'm using Mint Macaron color. So this is Mint Macaron is the cardstock, and it's an 8.5 by 11 cut in half. And then I have Mint Macaron Designer Series paper, and this is the other side. And this paper comes from, let me show you, this is a Design a Daydream, a huge pack of 12 by 12 paper. This is a host reward, so anytime you place an order of $150 or more, whether it's just yours or a combination of others, this is something that you can choose, but it's a huge pack of paper, 12 by 12. So that's where this paper is coming from, and this is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have a piece of vellum. This vellum is 2.5 by 3 inches, vellum cardstock, 2.5 by 3 inches. And then I have a piece of just white scrap paper that I'm going to use for the label. Okay, so we'll set that aside for a minute. I'll show you some other things I'll be using. This here is the white glittered organdy ribbon, and that is in the annual catalog. Ink colors I'll be using Blackberry Bliss. And then I'm using a white ink pad. This is a white ink pad that Stampin' Up! Carried previously. We have switched to a different one now. You're going to have the same effect. So let me just show you in the catalog itself. You'll have the, right here, it is on page 129. And it is a craft Stampin' ink pad with a white, it's just white down here with a white refill. I would go ahead and get the refill right away because it's a different kind of ink and will dry quicker. So this is what you would be looking for now is the craft white ink pad. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to be using clear embossing powder. This is how I use it. I find this is obviously not how it comes. It comes in a small container. I find it easier to use when you dump it into a larger container. And I'll show you in just a minute why. The stamp set I'll be using is called Sit, Stay, Relax, and this also is a host item with $150 order or more on your own or combined with someone else that you can choose this stamp set as one of your free items. So it's cute. It has the cat and the dogs here and just fun little sayings. Okay. So let's go ahead. Oh, and the punch that I'll be using is a retired punch, I will tell you, but I know many of you probably already have it in your collection. So it is a retired punch. If you do not, in the annual catalog, there is a punch called Label Me Fancy. Label Me Fancy. It is very similar in the size and shape. So if you like this kind of design here, look for the Label Me Fancy punch because that's what you'll want. Okay. And then I'll be using 2 Stampin' Blends. I'll be using dark Blackberry Bliss and the dark Basic Black. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'm going to stamp with the white ink. We're going to get that well inked here. And I'm going to put that kind of toward the top a little bit because I want to be able to put my label across the vellum a little bit. So we want to make sure that gets nice and wet and juicy on there. The wetter it is, the better your powder will stick to it. So that's why you want to make sure you have a refill because you want it to be wet ink. Okay, I'm going to pull that off of there. And then this is where I find it better to take your embossing powder and put it in a larger container because I can just take this now and put that right through there. And then I don't have a mess all over the place with the powder. And we're just going to tap off the excess and set that aside. Be super careful with your embossing powder because if that dumps on your table, it's a mess. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. We're going to heat this. Just going to hold the corner. If it gets too hot for you, take a pick tool, grab your scissors, something else to hold the corner rather than your finger. And I'm just going to keep this moving. You don't want to hold it in one spot. And you'll see I'm maybe like, I don't know, 2 inches away from my vellum. And you'll start seeing the color changing. I'm using clear embossing powder, but you could definitely use white embossing powder too. That's getting a little hot on my finger. So I have white ink with clear embossing powder, but you could use white ink with white embossing powder and it would come out a little bit stronger, a little bit brighter of a color. So that's up to you, okay? So you can tell when you're done when it's all clear, or not clear, sorry, when it's all shiny and not like a powdery look. If you still see some powdery spots for it, just go back and zap it again, okay? So this is it. So I'm gonna flip it over on the back. Now we're gonna start coloring. I'm gonna color in this kitty first. And I'm using my blends. Don't worry about if you go over any of the white lines. It's not gonna make a big deal, except for I just wanna get this kitty. If you're changing colors, it makes a big deal, but otherwise, if you're not changing colors, it's not gonna matter, and I'll show you in a second. Okay, so the kitty's done. Now the first one I did, I ended up coloring right over the kitty, so you don't wanna do that. All right, so I'm gonna go right over those white lines. Not a big deal, and I'll show you in a second. I'm gonna try and be a little bit quick here with this. Have you used vellum before? Have you stamped on vellum? It's really pretty. Okay, let me be careful. Last time I did this, I was trying to make the sample for this and I colored right over the kitty. So I did a take two, and we're gonna try not to do that this time. Okay. All right. It's relatively quick though, right? It's not super time consuming. And because I have Stampin' blends, the more layers you put on, the darker it will be. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of extra, just in areas where maybe you would shade a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit extra along the edges, like where the seams would be on this chair, where you might have a little bit of a shadow. It doesn't matter. The beauty is, remember I flipped this over on the back. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't look so pretty on the back, because it's not gonna matter. Just hang on. So let me use the black. I forgot to do the legs of this chair. Let's add that in there, okay? So look at this. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the back. It's not great looking, but I'm gonna flip it over on the other side, and that's what you end up seeing. And hang on a minute, because it's hard like that to see it maybe, but then when you put something behind it, look at this. Okay, or we're gonna put this behind it actually. So coloring on the back just gives it a nice soft look, so it doesn't matter how pretty or what it looks like on the back, you're gonna flip it over. So you might be coloring going, no, this isn't looking so great. Don't worry about it. Flip it over, and this is what you're gonna end up with, okay? Love it. All right, so stick with me here. Let's put some adhesive on the back. You have to be a little bit careful sometimes with adhesive on vellum because you can see through, so play around with some different adhesives. The Stampin' Seal is pretty good about it, that I don't really see too much coming through, which is nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down because you see I put some right here and you really can't see it very well. I mean, very lightly, but I'm going to put a ribbon around that anyway. But I do try to be strategic with where I'm putting my adhesive when I'm using vellum. Okay. So then I'm going to use this organdy ribbon that I told you about, and I'm doing about 6-inch pieces. And again, this paper is awesome, this grid paper, because you have measurements right on here. So I'm going to do about 2 6-inch pieces. Okay, so let's take this one here. I'm going to put my adhesive down the back. And I'm going to wrap this one piece right around and stick that. Okay, and then this is my base. So it's a mint macaron. I've already scored it, so it makes it very easy to fold and crease. And then we'll add this onto here. We'll press that down, flip it over, and press down so you don't get fingerprints or other ink smear or something on there. So that's it so far. Then I will take this Blackberry Bliss. Such a great color, so deep and rich. And I'm going to stamp right on this scratch piece of white paper. You hang on to those little white pieces of paper because they're great for doing labels, things like this. Okay, I'm going to take my punch and turn it upside down. It's a whole lot easier if you turn it upside down and then punch out. You can see exactly what you're punching that way. Okay, I'm taking that other 6 piece here. I'm doing this little faux bow, which I do often. So we're going to tuck that underneath. And I'm crossing over. And I'm going to bring it through and turn this one this way. Turning it toward me. And if you're left-handed, it might be a little different. I'm sorry about that. All right, let's trim this off here. Trim our edges. Okay. And then, of course, dimensionals, because we always need dimensionals. Typically, I would put my dimensionals on the end, but if you do that, it ends up sticking to the ribbon, and that doesn't make it super secure to the card. So if I want to do it over ribbons, then I do them on the top and the bottom so that the ribbon kind of gets stuck in between there. That way it's sticking to the card and not the ribbon. And we'll put that down there. And there we go. Just sitting here thinking of you. So that's the Stampin' Blends on Vellum. If that's new to you, give it a try. Shoot me a picture and let me know what you tried out and if this is something new to you. And that's it. I'll talk with you later. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.